Well, what came out of the meeting, first of all, was a lot more friendliness than we perhaps might have expected, considering that very frosty attitude between Rome and Paris of the last few days. Emmanuel Macron and Giuseppe Conte agreeing on several points. Firstly, most significantly, that these so-called Dublin regulations need an overhaul. These are the rules that govern how asylum seekers are dealt with once they're in the European Union. Currently, they are processed in the country of their first arrival in the EU. Now, for a country like Italy, which receives the vast majority of people crossing the Mediterranean, that does put a huge burden on Italy in dealing with those first arrivals. Emmanuel Macron, however, quite keen to remind us of some statistics, saying that there might be a lot of first arrivals in Italy, but France has actually received a superior number of requests from people who've moved on from Italy to France to be taken in here as well, seemingly trying to say, look, you know, France isn't the big rich country that has no problems. We are part of this as well. Both men talked a lot about solidarity, about showing more humanity. Giuseppe Conte at one point talking about the ships that are crossing the Mediterranean, referring to them as death voyagers, saying we must stop these death voyages. Perhaps an interesting, perhaps might turn out to be controversial idea was what they called protection centres in North Africa, principally, in the countries of origin as well, talking about processing potential asylum seekers there. It's not entirely clear how they think this might be funded, how this might be administered, but they certainly both talked about other countries in Europe needing to get on board and the rules needing to be rewritten.
Catherine, this was going to be the first meeting between Macron and Conte since Conte assumed the job, and given it's been overshadowed by these differences over migration, how do you think the relationship between Paris and Rome is set to change given the what we've experienced in the last few days?
Well, from what I saw just now inside that press conference, it really does seem to be an effort to smooth over relations and patch things up. Emmanuel Macron referred to the Italian Prime Minister as mon cher Giuseppe, and Mr. Conte referred to the French President as mon ami Emmanuel, or my friend Emmanuel. So on that score, it looks like both men have recognised that this is a relationship that they both believe would be beneficial to keep on the smooth and narrow. We do know that both Emmanuel Macron and Giuseppe Conte are going to be having dealings with Berlin in the coming days, speaking to the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Now, she's a very key person to get on board with anything to do with reform in the European Union, particularly migration. We know that currently migration topics are threatening to cause severe instability within her own government. Germany, as we know, took in 1 million migrants in the year 2015 at the height of the migration crisis. So Emmanuel Macron, Giuseppe Conte, both name-checking Germany, also Spain, as countries that they believe will be key to the future relationship. There was also a question about whether the other countries that have flat out refused to take part in the quota system might be got on board, and there seemed to be some optimism there. So certainly the message that they're trying to give out today is that, look, this is not a broken relationship. There is a common intent to work together. We have common aims, and they're of course looking ahead to that European summit that's going to be taking place in 2 weeks from now. We'll have to see if all this commonality and solidarity bears out in Brussels on June 28th.